Well, we see compensation as a big alignment tool, and it creates a flywheel for the employees to feel empowered to make the right decisions for the business. Nobody has to micromanage the business. Everyone is focused and concerned about the right things, and there's no room for politics and bureaucracy. Instead, you create a meritocracy where everyone is focused on fulfilling the purpose of the business. B players have nowhere to hide, and A players make a ton of money and stay with the company long term.
This podcast is brought to you by Fast Slow Motion, a team of expert consultants that have helped hundreds of growing businesses build scalable systems on the HubSpot and Salesforce platforms. To learn more, visit fastslowmotion.com. Welcome to the Fast Slow Motion podcast, where we teach you how to build a business you love while enjoying your life. I'm your host, Sam Donaghey. In today's episode, we're diving into a topic that every business owner and leader grapples with: compensation systems. And specifically, we'll explore how a well-designed compensation system can create a flywheel for success in your business. I'm excited to be joined by Fast Slow Motion's founder and CEO, John Burdett. John, it's great to see you today, and thanks so much for being here.
Hey, Sam, great to be here. Excited to talk about compensation systems. Honestly, I don't hear a lot of business leaders talk about this often, and I personally think it's a critical aspect of building a scalable business that's both aligned and focused on fulfilling its mission.
John, you've built Fast Slow Motion from the ground up, and a big part of that success has been the way that you've designed your compensation system. So I'm sure that our listeners are going to be really interested to learn more about how this system works and how it's contributed to Fast Slow Motion's growth. So let's start today by giving some context and actually defining what a compensation system is.
Compensation is obviously a very important topic in business. Great team members want and deserve to be paid well. Every business has a compensation system. However, I think very few businesses look at compensation the right way and build a system with intentionality. So when done the right way, compensation is really an alignment tool. So most compensation systems are developed around rigid accounting, legal, and HR policies where the goal is to pay people the least amount possible as long as it's fair and equal. Employees are obviously jaded by this approach. They are always looking for ways to exploit holes in the system to get more money. And this is where bureaucracy and politics start invading a company's culture. We at Fast Slow Motion look at things very differently from a compensation perspective. We want our team members to make more money than they ever have before. We put every team member on a variable compensation plan that allows them to make more money when they hit their very achievable metrics that are aligned to the goals, purpose, and mission of the organization. So when done correctly, team members enjoy the work they get to do, are able to make a lot more money than they would anywhere else, and they drive the overall success of the business so the business continues to excel and succeed. It truly aligns the employees' incentives with the purpose and mission of the company.
And John, you're a big fan of the work of Jim Collins, and you've spoken before about one of his concepts in his book, Good to Great, which, by the way, I think is also recommended reading for new members of the sales team at Fast Slow Motion. So in that book, Jim writes about the flywheel effect, which is a concept that has shaped some of the systems and the processes that you've used to grow businesses like Fast Slow Motion. So can you please unpack this kind of principle in relation to compensation systems?
Yeah, like you mentioned, big fan of Jim Collins and his research and the way he crystallizes a lot of what it takes to be a long-term, successful, sustainable business. And one of his key concepts in Good to Great is the flywheel effect. And to quote Jim on this, it says, no matter how dramatic the end result, good to great transformations never happen in one fell swoop. In building a great company or social sector enterprise, there is no single defining action, no grand program, no killer innovation, no solitary lucky break, no miracle moment. Rather, the process resembles relentlessly pushing a giant, heavy flywheel turn upon turn, building momentum until a point of breakthrough and beyond. And we think about this concept in really all aspects of building a scalable business, because once you get that flywheel going, the business runs itself. And as long as you keep that flywheel moving in the same direction, everything works. Well, we see compensation as a big alignment tool, and it creates a flywheel for the employees to feel empowered to make the right decisions for the business. Nobody has to micromanage the business. everyone is focused and concerned about the right things, and there's no room for politics and bureaucracy. Instead, you create a meritocracy where everyone is focused on fulfilling the purpose of the business. B players have nowhere to hide, and A players make a ton of money and stay with the company long term. So you see, the team won't put up with mediocrity when you have this flywheel in place and compensation that is aligned to the business goals and objectives.
So the flywheel is basically designed to create almost like a self-governing system that weeds out complacency, it regulates itself, and ultimately decreases the need to micromanage. And everybody hates micromanagement, right? Pretty much. So what metrics do you track within the teams, but also the overall business to make sure that things stay on track and don't become misaligned?
Yeah, this is a very important topic because if you get this wrong, you're going to incent and align the employees to do the wrong things for the business, and you can have the exact opposite effect.
Right.
So to solve this problem, first, you need to know what metrics drive the success of your business. If you don't know why you're winning and you don't know why you're losing, if you don't know what the right inputs are to produce the right outcomes, this will not work. And so you have to figure that out. You don't have to have it perfect, but you need to figure that out to start with. Secondly, you need to define clear roles and responsibilities for your team members. So be as clear as possible. Clarity is kindness, and you want to be really clear about, hey, here's what you do to succeed and win in this job, and that way they know what the standards are. Remember to keep that as simple as possible. You don't want to make that too complex, and because the complexity creates confusion with those people.
Right.
Third, define clear metrics for each role that align the overall outcomes you want for your business. Make it clear how this role that they're doing achieves the overall business objectives. When you do that, you have true buy-in to see they understand how valuable they are and that how that drives the business outcomes that makes the business successful. And then finally, you want to create a variable compensation plan that is very achievable. You do not want, we're not talking about stretch goals here. We're talking about ones that when they do a good job and they do their job well, they're going to hit these metrics and get this money that aligns to their roles so that they're rewarded for achieving the metrics which drive the overall success of the business.
Okay, that's great. So a little while back as well, you mentioned that you always want to make sure that goals are achievable. So how do you implement clear objectives that are aligned to each role within the company? And if somebody's listening to this now, they're currently running their own business, what are the steps that they should take if they need to do something like this, if they want to do something like this?
Yeah, you need to be clear on I call it the excellence bar. The standard is the standard, and they need to know what a win looks like. And so be crystal clear on that. And with that said, you don't lower the standard. You coach people up, but you don't lower the standard to accommodate for people not achieving the objectives. So it's really important that you be clear on what that standard is and help them understand what a win is, and that gives them something to go after. You also need to make sure they're very, very achievable. And like I said before, don't make these stretch goals. Make it like if somebody's doing their job and they're doing it well, they win and they are rewarded with more compensation because they did their job well. We're not trying to stretch them out so that they only get it if a miracle happens and things like that. So we're talking about what it takes for this team member to win in their role. And to figure this out, it's real simple. You need to test multiple things. So if it's a new role, I recommend starting with one person, putting metrics in place, communicating with that person that, hey, we're going to figure this out together over the next 6 to 12 months. If it doesn't work well, we're going to adjust it. If it does work well, we're going to roll it out and expand it out. And then we'll iterate and tweak it over time based on the data and how the business is evolving. So once you have that, it's really critical that you do roll it out and you roll it out consistently so that everybody's doing the same things in those roles to achieve the right objectives. Another key is iteration and over communication. So one thing is constant. Your business is going to change over time. The roles and responsibilities are going to change all the time. So you don't want to jerk the steering wheel. You don't want to overcorrect. You don't want to be making changes all the time. However, you need to bake in change to your culture so that people get used to change and they understand things will change over time because the business changes. And so you iterate and evolve these responsibilities, these metrics, these roles, the comp plans, the percentages, all the things that you may tweak to keep everything aligned. Because once again, compensation is an alignment tool and what you incent will get done. And so you need to make sure you're doing the right things over time for your business. So That's how I recommend doing it. Start small, get it going, test it out, over communicate, and then iterate on it. And then once you understand what works, systematize it and roll it out to the entire organization.
That's awesome. Love that. So another question would be, how does a meritocracy within a business foster growth and learning? I'd love to hear more on that.
This is somewhat of a taboo topic in a lot of today's culture because I think it's misunderstood. We need to stop trying to be fair. Nobody actually wants fair. Life isn't fair. There's nothing fair about it. Frankly, we all want grace from time to time. We all make mistakes and things like that. What people really want is clarity and consistency. They want to know what the standard is, and they want to know what they need to do to hit that standard. And you want to create an environment where everybody has an equal opportunity for team members to do great things. And you do that by creating clear roles and responsibilities and development plans and metrics. Because as I mentioned before, clarity is kindness here.
Yeah.
If you're real clear with your team members what the standard is and how you're able to do that, and then encourage them, and then your job is to coach them up to hit those things, you're able to create a meritocracy where your best players, your best team members are going to really excel, and they're going to make a lot more money, and they're going to win, and they're going to be fulfilled in what they do. They're going to be able to achieve their financial objectives and all the things you want for them personally. But at the same time, we don't change those standards, as I mentioned before. So we're not moving the bar. We're setting the standard very clear and allowing those people to move up. And the result of that is people can move up quickly. You don't have to be in the role X amount of months or years or whatever. If you've set the standard and you've got a high performing person, you're able to move them up in the organization a lot faster and not get caught up in the bureaucracy and politics that sometimes come into play with different things. So we really want to create that flywheel effect and really make it happen based on these kinds of things. So the compensation plan has the right incentives in place for the business to succeed, and really offers the opportunity to make more money than they ever thought possible. And that's a fun thing as a business leader, to have people making a lot of money and winning on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I bet it is. I bet it's very fulfilling for you to watch play out. So can you also talk about how often you, as business leaders within Fast Slow Motion, look at the individual performance and how you know when someone is ready to be promoted? Because you mentioned that you don't have to wait around before you're promoted here at FSM. How does that work here?
Yeah, and it's a different mentality. We have to coach our team a lot of times because they come with a lot of baggage from other organizations or way other businesses do compensation. So we believe in continuous coaching. It's not an event. It happens in real time because the employee deserves it. If they're not doing something well, they deserve to be told and helped in real time, and not wait to some yearly meeting when they get surprised and didn't realize they were doing something wrong the whole time. That's not fair to anybody. And so we believe in doing that in real time, and we bake that into our culture so that it's unacceptable not to do it. So helping employees succeed, once again, isn't a meeting once a year. It's who we are and what we do. And so we work for our employees. They don't work for us. Performance is evaluated all the time, and the comp plan is used to keep people aligned and focus on what's important. And when your comp plan is aligned with the right performance outcomes, you don't have to micromanage anyone, as we mentioned before. Now, we have a ton of processes in place, so it doesn't happen by accident. We're very intentional about it, and we empower our leaders in the organizations to coach those employees in real times. So we not only equip them with training and mentoring and coaching, we also give them good processes and systems to follow so that things are done consistently across the organization. So our leaders have one-on-ones with their direct reports each month. Our system will track the employee. We'll ask the employees, what's your life score? What's your health score? What's your work score? We get them to kind of rate themselves on those three categories, and we measure that data over time. And if they're having some bad stuff going on, we're able to help, because your personal life affects your work life, and your work life affects your personal life. And it also affects your health. If you're not staying healthy, you're not going to be able to work well and live a fulfilling life. We also schedule regular meetings with our director of people. So we have a full-time person, Michael Smith, at our company, who's been on our podcast before. And his job is to really align the hopes and dreams of our employees with the goals and missions of Fast Slow Motion, and allows us to find that marriage between the two. And so he's doing more things from, okay, I'm going to develop these people because each person is special and unique, and they have unique talents and abilities. Hey, you're special for a reason. Let's make sure we're leveraging your talents like you can, and then align your compensation so that you can make a lot of money doing what you love to do. I personally we have about 120 people that I still meet with twice per year. And so I'm still trying to build and focus on building personal relationships with each and every one of our employees. Now, I'm very intentional about not getting in the weeds on coaching and letting their leaders do that because they're better qualified to do that. But I want to hear how they're doing. I want to hear, are they enjoying the work? What's bothering them? I want to learn about them personally and get to know them and then understand what I can do to help them get to where they want to go. And so it helps me keep a close eye on the organization and make sure we are creating happy employees and the compensation plan is working to align so they can make more money and drive the success of the business. Now, we do have very defined systems for promotions and raises, but it's one of those things we do really kind of in real time. So leaders have a process of submitting employees up for promotions and raises, and they have to provide examples of here's the roles and responsibilities of this job that they're doing, how they now are meeting the criteria of the promotion. Give us examples of the calls they were on. Give us examples of the work products and things like that. So it's not subjective. It's very objective. We're able to say, oh yeah, this person is definitely ready to be promoted. And we're not just wondering if they're ready to go into that role. At a minimum though, because we do want to make sure we stay consistent and not miss things since things do happen in real time around here. We have a quarterly meeting where we review everything just to make sure we didn't miss somebody or somebody's being overlooked or whatever to make sure that we do stay on top of it and not, we don't want anybody to be left out or left behind. And then we only give promotions and raises on merit. We don't do cost of living increases. We don't do raises based on length of service. And we definitely don't do random bonuses. That's why we're a strong believer in this compensation system that we've built, that it truly aligns things and it makes everything crystal clear. And I don't have to come up and make up some bonus for somebody and think about how that's going to work. And just because you've been with us 2 years, you could have been promoted 4 times. You could have never been promoted. As long as you're doing your job and doing your job well and growing, you can stay in that role as long as you need to, as long as we have a spot for you there and allow you to thrive in that role. And so we have people all over the place. We have people that have been promoted up super fast. We have people that taken longer and all that stuff. And they're all adding value to our organization and to our teams. One key to making this work is having reliable and consistent data for all employees and making that available in real time so that everybody can see it. So once again, these processes that we put in place is capturing data so we can use our intuition, our gut, our feelings, and overlay that with real data to understand exactly how that employee's doing. Are they in the right role? How much money are they making? Is there a better opportunity for them? How do we coach them up? So each and every person, as a result of this, knows their metrics. They see them on their homepage. They know how they're doing. There's no surprises. If they're not doing well, they know. And we're all looking at the same data. So once again, like when I do my one-on-ones, I have access to all that data. So I see all the conversations they've had with their leaders. I see, how they're tracking to their metrics. I see how much time they're taking. I see how many certifications they have had. I'm able to talk to them about those types of things. I get to see whether or not there's been a performance review, like a concern put in place, which is important. I don't want to go into a meeting with somebody and talk about how great they are if they're struggling. I need to be honest with them and say, hey, I know we're coaching you up on some of these things. How can I help you get to where you want to go versus mislead that employee and then think everything is all right when it's not.
And having those transparent conversations early on, right? Making sure that you get ahead of that.
That's exactly right.
Quick time.
None of that ages well. And while it's a difficult conversation, it's better to have it in real time and focus on helping that employee. The goal is not to get on them. It's to help them get to the standard. Because if they can't get to the standard, we all lose. And that's really what we want to do there.
Okay. So let's say we've got candidates who are listening to this episode. Services-based business, you've said in the past, the biggest cost by far for a services business is its people. So it's going to be really critical to hire people on this side, people who are fully bought in and believe in this sort of system. So what is the benefit to an employee of working at Fast Slow Motion under this kind of compensation system and this structure? Can you talk about that? Like, why should an employee want to work in a business like this?
Yeah, I probably should ask you this question, right, Sam? So for those of you that don't know, I think, Sam's probably our most unpopular employee out on social media. He's our director of recruiting. This is one he answers all the time because we do things very differently than everybody else. And so he spends a lot of time explaining this to our people. But, what I do is try to help people understand the why. Here's why we do it. And it hopefully turns into a recruiting tool and helps us attract the right people that fit within our culture. So, having a compensation system that's truly aligned to the success of the business, changes how we recruit and develop people within our business. And first and foremost, you need to clearly explain that. So like I said, Sam's doing a lot of that explaining up front and prepping that person to say, hey, our goal is for you to make more money than you ever have before, but it's going to be different than you probably did it before as well. Here's why we do what we do to make that happen. And so this type of compensation system will ferret out team members that aren't a good fit for your company. Your company is not a good fit for everybody. And we're unapologetic about that because there's a better opportunity for that person. There's a better fit. And we want to grow people up to stay here. We don't want people leaving. So the worst thing we can do is attract people where it doesn't fit. It doesn't align with how they want to do things. We're looking for people that want to bet on themselves. They get bored easily. They have a growth mindset, that meritocracy idea that makes them excited. If you're listening to this and you're a candidate and you're like, that scares you or whatever, you're probably not a good fit here. There's a better opportunity for you. But the people are like, heck yeah, I'll bet on myself. Heck yeah, I'll get those certifications. Heck yeah, I want to jump in and figure out how to learn and do all these kinds of things. Those types of people are attracted to our organization. And then we align that compensation system so they can make more money. And there's no ceiling on what they can make because they're doing the things that drive the success of the business, which means we make more money as a business, which means we can pay our people more money and create that flywheel effect that we've talked about before. Compensation like this forces that growth mindset and ensures we have the right people in the business and everybody is focused on getting better. It ferrets out complacency within the organization because there's nowhere to hide and there's always more opportunities to grow and get better.
So another topic that I'd love to cover, John, as well, because we've kind of just gone through this subject, right? In terms of how does a business navigate going through economic downturns or other times of uncertainty, since the pandemic, like we've seen some crazy things happening with the economy, right? But from your perspective, how is this compensation system helping the business navigate through those times? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. As I mentioned, I'm a big fan of putting variable comp in place for this reason. Is so that the employee's work is tied to the success of the business and the two are intermingled. And so the employees know what drives the success of the business. So when the business struggles, everyone struggles in a good way, right? Things aren't as great as they used to be. It's harder to sell. It's harder to deliver. Clients are having financial issues, whatever it may be. We're all motivated to fix those problems. And we believe our frontline employees, the people doing the work, should be empowered to help fix those problems because they're the most qualified. They're the ones seeing it on a day-to-day basis. And so when you align your compensation plan that way, where their pocketbook starts being affected by this, they're going to stay motivated to get better, help the employees, innovate, whatever it is. That really allows the closest people to the problem to fix them. And once again, as I mentioned before, the most qualified people, in my opinion. As CEO, I'm the least qualified to come in and fix some of these things that are root causes of maybe what's causing the business to struggle. So when the times are tough, the financials of the business flex. So instead of having to lay off a bunch of people, the compensation plans flex so that, people make a little bit less money because the business is making less money, but they're still making good money and they're feeling the pain of it. They're motivated to fix it.
They don't lose their job. That's the main thing.
That's right. And they don't lose their jobs. We don't, I'll be on the record for saying I've never had to lay off anybody and I never want to. And I hope I never have to. But this is one of the ways you can help do that is, hey, you'll less likely have to lay off people because the financials of the business are flexing with the success of the business. And it also works the other way. When the business is doing well, we're able to pay people even more. And really, once again, it kind of goes back to that flywheel effect, right? The business is kind of running itself, but because we got these great systems and processes in place, we have this great alignment tool called compensation, keeping everything focused on where it needs to be. So what happens from my business leader perspective is the business will fix itself organically because people are going to be naturally motivated to solve the right problems. And I'm not the only one worried about revenue, client retention, employee happiness, all the critical things to our business. Every single person is.
It's the type of business where we're not looking to hire transactional people who just want a job. And you said that day one, like people, you don't want to look for people who just want a job. You're looking for people who are fully invested in the business, the mission of what we do, the culture. And that's that flywheel, right? It starts with hiring the right people. It starts with expressing why we do things the way we do things. And then we see during the pandemic, I was on the front lines in recruitment. I saw people getting laid off left, right, and center. And we didn't have that fast slow motion because the business was able to flex. I've seen that play out in real time. And I'm a big believer in this compensation system. So thank you for that, John. Well, listen, before we wrap up, we always like to end each episode with a quote. So, John, do you have a favorite quote or a piece of wisdom that's guided or inspired you that you'd like to leave with us today?
Yeah, you know me, I don't like following the rules, so I have two quotes that I thought were pretty good here. So this one's from Jack Welch. She says, if you pick the right people, give them the right opportunity to spread their wings and put compensation as a carrier behind it, you will almost never have to manage them, right? Kind of going back to what we're talking about where we don't micromanage people around here, and the compensation system definitely helps solve that problem. And then Charlie Munger says, show me the incentive and I will show you the outcome. And so the beautiful things about incentives are they incent. It seems real basic to think about, but that's a beautiful thing. But it's also a negative thing. So if you put the wrong incentives in place, it's going to incent people the wrong way. So I would argue is you're incenting people no matter what. And so why not be intentional about it and align your compensation plan so that you get the outright outcomes that you want so that your business will be successful long term and you won't have to micromanage it.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much, John.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, that wraps up today's episode. A big thank you to John again for sharing his insights with us. And we hope our listeners found the discussion really insightful, especially as it offers valuable perspectives for both business leaders aiming to enhance their organizations and potential employees considering their ideal workplace. So remember to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platforms, or you can find archived episodes at fastslowmotion.com/podcast. And if you have topics that you'd like to hear more about or questions about what we've covered in a previous episode or maybe today's, you can send your requests and questions to us at fastslowmotion.com/podcast feedback.